The pavement was slick with a recent rain. The air hung heavy, pregnant with the promise of another downpour. Michael, lost in thought, barely registered the dull glint beneath his shoe. He stopped, retracing his steps. Curiosity piqued. He bent down. A lone USB drive lay abandoned on the sidewalk. Its casing was scratched, the logo worn away. Still, it seemed harmless enough. He picked it up, pocketing the drive without a second thought. Later that night, Michael found himself drawn back to the forgotten drive. The storm outside had broken, rain lashing against his window pane. He sat at his computer, the drive's cold metal a stark contrast against his fingertips. Plugged into the USB port, it emitted a faint hum. A notification popped up. It seemed almost expectant, urging him to delve into its depths. The drive's contents were, at first glance, utterly mundane. Folders neatly organized, labeled with dates and names. It appeared to belong to someone meticulous, perhaps a student or a young professional. Michael clicked through the files, curiosity getting the better of him. Financial spreadsheets, resumes, a few photos, landscapes mostly. Nothing out of the ordinary. He scrolled through the photos, each one crisp and well framed. There was a certain sterility to them, though, a lack of human presence. No smiling faces, no candid moments frozen in time. Just empty landscapes, mountains, forests, and seascapes stretching into the horizon. A sense of unease began to creep into Michael's mind. Why would anyone keep such impersonal photos? He navigated to a folder labeled Videos. It contained a handful of files, their titles a jumble of random letters and numbers. He double-clicked the first one. The screen remained black. He tried another, then another. Each attempt was met with the same unsettling void. The files refused to open. Frustration gnawed at him. What was the point of keeping inaccessible files? Then he noticed it. At the very bottom of the list, a single video file stood out. Unlike the others, its title was a single word, stark and chilling in its clarity. Subject 47. He hesitated, his finger hovering over the file. The rain outside intensified, mirroring the storm brewing within him. Something about that name, about this entire drive, felt profoundly wrong. He clicked the file. The video flickered to life, a grainy image resolving on the screen. It was a static shot of a nondescript office cubicle, eerily similar to his own. The fluorescent lights hummed, casting harsh shadows across the empty desk. He waited, holding his breath. The silence stretched on, broken only by the low hum of the computer. And then, it happened. The image on the screen flickered, distorting for a split second. When it stabilized, a figure stood in the cubicle. A man, his back to the camera, hunched over the desk, as if searching for something. He wore an ID badge, but the angle obscured his face. The man straightened up, turning slightly. Michael's blood ran cold. It was him. He was staring at himself, captured on a surveillance camera he never knew existed. The video ended abruptly. Michael recoiled from the screen, his heart pounding. He felt a chill crawl down his spine. How was this possible? Was this some elaborate prank? His gaze darted around the room, searching for any sign he wasn't alone. The silence was deafening. He went back to the drive, his hands shaking. He had to understand. He had to know the truth. He navigated back to the folder with the documents, his eyes scanning the file names. A sense of dread washed over him. The documents, once harmless resumes and financial statements, were now filled with cryptic symbols and coded messages. He tried to open one, but it was locked, requiring a password. The symbols swam before his eyes, their meaning just beyond his grasp. Panic began to set in. This was no joke. This was something far more sinister. He scanned the files again, desperate for answers. His eyes fell upon a folder he hadn't noticed before, tucked away in the farthest corner of the drive. It was simply titled Truth. With trembling fingers, he clicked it open. The folder contained a single audio file. He hesitated for a moment, then double-clicked. A voice filled the room, distorted and low, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. It talked of an organization, of experiments, of something called Project Mimic. The voice was cold, clinical, devoid of emotion. It spoke of erasing memories, of implanting false lives. And then, the voice uttered a single phrase that chilled him to his core. Subject 47 is ready for integration. Michael ripped the USB drive from the port as if it were burning his skin. His mind raced, struggling to process the horrifying implications of what he'd just heard. Was he Subject 47? Were his memories, his life, all fabricated? Was he part of some sick experiment? He felt a wave of nausea wash over him, the room spinning. He stumbled back from his desk, knocking over a framed photograph. It clattered to the floor, the glass shattering. As he bent to pick it up, his blood ran cold. The photograph was of him, smiling broadly, his arm slung around the shoulders of a woman he didn't recognize. Her smile was warm, her eyes filled with love. He didn't know who she was. Fear threatened to consume him. He was adrift in a sea of uncertainty, his past a blank slate, his present a terrifying mystery. He didn't know who to trust, who to turn to. Was he being watched right now? Was every move he made being monitored by unseen eyes? He felt a surge of defiance rise within him. He wouldn't be a pawn in their game. He would uncover the truth, no matter the cost. His gaze fell upon his reflection in the darkened computer screen. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. But beneath it all, he saw a flicker of resolve. He would fight. He would reclaim his life, his memories, his very identity. He would expose the truth about Project Mimic, whatever it took. He looked down at the USB drive in his hand. Its cold metal, a tangible reminder of the nightmare he'd stumbled into. It was both a curse and a key. A curse that had shattered his world, and a key to understanding the truth behind it all. He didn't know where to start, but he knew one thing. This was only the beginning. The storm outside raged on, mirroring the turmoil within him. But even as fear gnawed at his insides, a sliver of determination took root. He had found the drive for a reason. He was meant to find it. He was meant to remember. He was Subject 47, and he was no longer a prisoner of his own mind.